Mental toughness through adversity. All right, we're at the latter part of the season. Some of you, your season has started incredibly well, and it has been the best year ever. For some of you, this has been an incredibly difficult year. I know a ton of our pro community, for instance, is battling injuries, and there's been a lot of change that has happened. There's been moves between teams, and there's been some different things that have happened that have been difficult. Adversity hits. For some of you, it might be an injury. It might be a time where a coach sat you and you didn't expect it. Adversity hits and it can be really hard. And so to be a tremendous athlete, we have to have a measure of mental toughness. And there's a way to grow in it. We have to develop it. It is a huge asset to players that make it to the highest levels. And as Christian competitors, I truly believe that God strengthens us to not only compete with confidence at a level that no one else does, but also we can be tough, incredibly mentally tough at a level that others can't. The Spirit of God dwells inside of us. We stand upon the truth. Christ himself is our strength. He upholds us with his righteous right hand. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So we can attack things with confidence and with toughness. And we're going to dive into that today. All right, so to kick it off, what is mental toughness? All right, here's the definition that I landed on, and I just love it. The ability to withstand great mental strain or hardship without breaking. What does it mean to break? To break, it's when negative thoughts take over. Negative emotions start to control us. We give up or we stop trying. We lose confidence. We lose hope. When things get difficult, the toughness comes when we can stand and we refuse to break. We keep striving after our dream. We keep pushing through, staying positive, staying encouraged, standing upon God's promises. We do not break. Teams that are incredibly tough can go through any sort of adversity and they do not turn on each other. They don't crack. There was a time I remember playing in Allen. We were playing in the final rounds, fighting for the Western Conference Finals. And the team that we were playing was one of the best teams all year long, incredibly gifted. And truly, to the very end, they were one of the best teams that we ever played in the season. And we battled with them. We were down 3-1 in the series. And we had a moment, actually being down 3-1 going into the third period, where our team was in the locker room and we had that breaking moment. Are we going to break or are we going to stand? It was a defining moment. And so that defining moment was huge for us. By God's grace, we didn't break. We stood. And when we stood, we came out, we ended up scoring in the third period. We tie it, we go to overtime, we win the game, and then we win the next game. We win it in game 7. We're back in Allen, living this dream of coming back, but it was all tied to that moment where we did not break. On the other side of it, the other team came to Allen for game 7, and they did break. They turned on each other. They started yelling at each other and bickering at each other, and their emotions got them. They had negative thoughts and negative emotions that took over, and eventually they cracked. And by God's grace, we were able to win in the final game. And so from a team standpoint, this is true. From an individual standpoint, this is so true. When you go through adversity and a coach rejects you, or a teammate rejects you, or you don't have a good game, you're in the middle of a slump and you got so many games just going over and over again, you're not scoring. It's difficult. It's hard. How do you stay encouraged? How do you not give up? How do you keep believing in a dream that you're feeling is like impossible? Man, all my teammates are getting scholarships. All my teammates are making teams and they're getting huge opportunities and I'm not. How do we stay encouraged and not break? This is what mental toughness is. The ability to withstand great mental strain or hardship without breaking. And so we want to build it. And I believe it's possible to build. It's possible to have, it's possible to build. So here's some thoughts. Adversity will either motivate you or defeat you. You choose. This simple quote, my mom would drive into me all the time as a player. I would be hubbling and bubbling, going through challenges in pro hockey, traveling around the country, doing things. And my mom would listen and she would look at me or she'd talk to me over the phone and she'd be like, Gary, this adversity is either going to motivate you or it's going to defeat you. You choose. And I will never forget that incredible encouragement and message. But what does that say? It says that no matter what we are going through, we have a choice. We have a choice how we're going to get through it, how we're going to approach it, whether we're going to overcome it with motivation or we're going to let it beat us. And by the power of God, we can stand and overcome anything that comes our way as followers of Jesus. So the encouragement is to be motivated. And that's how we're going to attack this tonight, with that kind of mentality. So I was sitting in my locker room in Bakersfield, and the coach walks in. This is the ECHL a couple years ago, my 4th season of pro. The coach is motivating the team and talking to us, and he draws this picture up on the board, this graph with a linear line going straight up and to the right. And he says, guys, this is what everybody thinks the road to success looks like. This is what they believe it looks like. You start and you just keep climbing right from the get-go. And it's this smooth, amazing line driving forward, and it brings great success. We say, guys, this is wrong. And he erased it on the board. And he says, this is what success really looks like. The true road to success. It looks crazy. And there are times in our journey where we are on the down circle. There's times in our journey when we are on the heights and mountains. There's, for me in my journey as an athlete, I think about making U.S. national teams and playing overseas when I was 17 years old. I think about getting a full scholarship to play at Miami University and just living a dream, playing in some of the biggest games. I also think about when I'm a senior athlete at Miami. I'm a full scholarship athlete. I didn't score a single goal my entire senior season. I played half the games. I was scratched in the Frozen Four. The year before, I was playing in the national title game, and I got to score in a national title game. The next year, I'm sitting in the same Frozen Four. I get to pro hockey, and I get runner-up rookie of the year my first year. I live a dream, getting to play in the American League in my 3rd season. And then in my 4th year, I get a concussion, and I go through some different stuff, and I end up just battling through some different challenges. My 5th year, I lead the league in goals, which is a dream. My 6th year, I'm sitting and scratched at different moments too. And like, you just have these ups and these downs in a career. And it's so easy to get fixated on the challenge or the moment, thinking that this is the defining moment to our success. Like, I'm scratched in the playoffs. I'm never going to get a chance to go to the next level. I'm never going to get a chance to get a scholarship. And we can become so fixated that discouragement starts to take over. But it's in these moments that we need perspective and we need mental toughness so that we don't break. Because the reality is, the journey to success has a whole bunch of ups and downs. And the question is are you going to keep climbing? Are you just going to keep climbing and keep progressing and keep moving and refuse to break and just keep going? Now, I'm not advocating as followers of Christ that we go after things at all costs and don't obey and surrender to Jesus. If God is calling us to surrender everything and to do something different, we follow Jesus. But if God's not calling us away, I think there is a lot of times when people give up way too easy and they give up too soon. And as followers of Christ, it's okay to be tough and to be strong and to chase after some of these things that we're fighting for, because the road to success is difficult at times. So tonight, as we talk about this, we're going to talk about 5 things to help us increase mental toughness. 5 things. And these are the 5. We're going to dive into all of them. Perspective matters. We're going to avoid 3 enemies to perseverance. We're going to get clear vision. We're going to get a big why, and we're going to be strong. We're going to talk about these 5 things, and then we're going to be done. But how do we increase mental toughness? All right, as we dive into this, we'll take the first 2, and then we're going to do a quick little break off. We'll take the next 2, do a quick little break off, and then we'll wrap it up toward the end. All right, so if you're taking notes, here we go. How do we increase mental toughness? First off, perspective matters. Perspective matters. All right, there are blessings in perseverance. As hard as that might sound, there are blessings in perseverance. It can feel like the world is falling down around us and that our life is just a mess and is going to never, ever be fixed. And it's going to be the hardest thing that we go through. There's no good that can come out of this. But the reality is, perspective matters because there are blessings in perseverance. And so let's look at a few of them. First, God works all things for good. Here's what it says in Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. God is in the business of taking all things and using them for good for those who are called according to his purpose. Amazing, incredible. So there is nothing that he cannot turn for good or use for good. He is overall and he is good. Second big perspective shift. It says this in Hebrews chapter 12, for the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. All right, this is a really, really impactful one for me, that God loves us enough to discipline us. And there is a fruit that comes to those who have been trained by it. To be trained by it means that we have to go through some difficult moments. Like you think about a trainer in the gym, they are training you, and the result is that you get stronger and more powerful and you get faster. The same thing is with our walk with God. God is training us at times. And when we allow him to train us, we see these adversity moments as moments of training. God produces in us this crazy fruit. Amazing. I can remember back on a time I was playing at Miami University. It was my senior season. Like I said, I didn't score a single goal my entire senior season. It was the toughest year, honestly, of my college career, and maybe even my entire career. It was crazy. My first year as a Christian, I just come to Christ the year before. I didn't score a single goal my senior season. And I remember a moment during that year when I'm playing just in practice. We have a defensive zone drill that we're doing. The puck comes around the boards and it's a routine play. You get it off the wall, you make a play, you put it off the glass, you get it out. For those of you guys that are hockey guys, you know what I'm talking about. And the puck came around the boards and I literally watched it hit something in the ice, and it skyrockets up 2 feet, jumps over my stick, and goes immediately up to my guy who I definitely didn't want to give the puck to. And he goes in and takes a shot. And my entire career, all 4 years of being there, if that ever happened, we would get just reamed by the coaches. Like they would be on us. They would be telling us to shape up. There would be consequences to maybe, we don't get to play on that opportunity again. There's a shift in the line. There's something like the coach would get on us, whatever consequence came for that moment. And I will never forget the day that happened. This is later in the season. And my coaches were standing there and they looked at me with these just faces of disappointment, and they just shook their heads like this, and they turned their back on me and they skated away. And I'll tell you, in that moment, the lack of discipline that I received that day was infinitely worse than the discipline I had received all 4 years of my pro career. When my coaches would hammer me, it honestly expressed that they loved and cared about me enough to make me better. And the day that they looked at me and they just shook their head and skated away, man, that ripped my heart apart, because it communicated that I wasn't worth it anymore. They gave up on me. And that was incredibly painful. So we talk about perspective, right? We say the first that God uses all things for good. This time, God loves us. And really, when he trains us and he disciplines us through these different adversities that we can have in life, it's a way that he communicates his love for us. He chastises every son that he receives. Okay, another perspective shift that's important. God transforms us. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. There is a powerful transformation that happens when we go through trials, where God literally perfects us, completes us, and we become people who are lacking in nothing. There's a maturity and a transformation that happens, so we can count it all joy. This is perspective about when we're going through challenges. Okay, last one is this. God uses everything. It says in Psalm 66, 10-12, for you, O God, have tested us. You have tried us as silver is tried. You brought us into the net. You laid a crushing burden on our backs. You let men ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, yet you brought us into a place of abundance. Yet you brought us into a place of abundance. Whatever it is that you might be going through, as hard as it is, God is in the business of bringing about yet moments. Yet you have brought us into a place of abundance. What seem like the worst setbacks are often God's setups for something greater. I'll say it again. What often seem like setbacks are often God's setups for something greater. No matter what we're going through, God uses it for good for those who are called according to his purpose. God transforms us. God takes things and he uses everything. There's a yet for these places of abundance, and his discipline is love. He loves us that much. Perspective matters. This impacts our mental toughness in significant ways. Because when we see with clear perspective through the lens of God's word, through the lens that God loves us, that he's using it for good, there's purpose in the pain, there's purpose in the trial, this starts to breed a toughness and a strength in us no matter what we're going through. The last thing I want to say on this topic of perspective is this. I want to talk about trees for a second. There are lessons I believe that can be learned from trees. So I was in Bakersfield. I was getting ready to speak at a church, and I was preparing for the night, and I'm studying all this stuff, and I find myself on this crazy rabbit trail all about trees, and it radically impacted me. And here's what I learned. I learned that when you get a brand new tree, a baby tree, and you take that and you put it in the grass and you plant it and you start watering it, it is so good. The tree just loves the water and it is wonderful. But if we keep watering that tree and just keep blessing it and pouring out blessing and watering it and watering it and watering it and watering it, and we just love on that tree like crazy with so much water, over time, that tree is blessed. But here's the consequence. The roots never start to dig into the ground at all. They don't need to because they're just getting fed all day. But if I allow that tree to go through a dry season, I water it for a time and then I allow a dry season to come, those roots actually start to dig deeper into the ground in search for water. And it's painful. And it's horrible for the tree, what they're going through. It's painful, it's tough, it's hard. But as it's searching and searching and searching for more, and then we water it and then we give it a dry season and it goes through and it's searching for more water, little does the tree realize that what's actually happening is it's getting prepared for the storm. Because when the storm comes and that huge wind and that huge set of rain come, the tree that has roots that have gone deep into the ground, that's the tree that stands. The tree that's been blessed like crazy and watered like and never had its roots grow very deep, that tree doesn't stand when the storm hits. And so perspective matters. When we are going through adversity and trial, our roots are growing deeper. God is using it for good. He loves us. And on top of it, he takes what seem like setbacks and he uses them as setups. Perspective matters. First step in mental toughness. Second thing, and then we're going to go to a breakout group, is this. We want to avoid 3 enemies to perseverance. I was at FCA's pro hockey camp. This was years ago, maybe a decade ago now, a little bit over 12 years ago. And we had an unbelievable speaker come whose name was Bob Froese. Bob Froese is an awesome guy. He played goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers back in the day and the Broad Street Bullies. Super duper talented, gifted goalie. He's a pastor now. And he came and gave one of the most powerful talks I've ever heard for me as an athlete. It was amazing. It stuck with me. And here's what he said. He said there's 3 enemies to perseverance. All 3 of these will rob you of the blessings of perseverance. All of those things that we talk about that God does that blesses us, these things will rob you if you give in to these things. So from a mental toughness standpoint, we must be on guard and avoid these 3 enemies to perseverance. The first is this. We have to avoid the temptation to buckle. When pressure gets high, the first temptation is that we just want to buckle our knees and we want to give up. We want to quit. We want to throw in the towel. It might not actually look like I give up and quit my team, but in your heart, maybe you just start going through the motions. Maybe you just kind of are casual and you just give up chasing the dream. You give up pursuing the things that you've been fired up and believing in for a long time. You buckle and you give up on it. That's an enemy to perseverance. And that is something that can rob us of the blessings. And this is a temptation. All of us face some of these things. I absolutely get tempted with these all the time and I have to guard against them. So you're not crazy if these things tempt you, but we need to guard against them. First is to buckle. Second is that we have a temptation at times to bail. We run or we escape. So things get really, really hard. My fourth season of professional hockey, I'm playing in Bakersfield. It's the hardest year of my pro career. And the temptation that I had all year long is to go into my GM's office and say, Coach, trade me. Like, trade me now. Get me out of this place. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape. I wanted out of there. When we have the temptation to bail, what we're trying to do is just get out of the situation and bail out. And that can rob us of the blessings of perseverance. Thankfully, as I sat at God's feet all year long, He wouldn't release me. And I wanted out, but God wasn't releasing me. And I had to fight to stay. And man, I'm so thankful I did, because I look back and I see the amazing things that God did in my life through that year. Absolutely miraculous what God turned that year and the future of things into, all because I refused to take matters into my own hands and I stayed under the trial when I wanted to bail. So buckling, bailing. The third thing is that we can turn to blaming. When things get really, really hard, one thing that will rob us of every blessing of perseverance is that we will start to blame, and we will blame and deflect. And it's not my fault. It's the equipment's fault. It's the equipment manager. It's my skates. It's the coach. It's my teammates. It's my parents. It's everybody else's fault. And we just blame, blame, blame. And we never take ownership. We never take responsibility. If we get into that habit of thinking in action, that will rob us of every blessing of perseverance, and that will kill our mental toughness. That will kill our mental toughness. We will break when hardship comes if we give in to blaming and the other two, buckling and bailing. With that said, I want to do a quick little breakout group to process a little bit where we've been so far. Here is what we're going to discuss. Where can you improve your perspective on a trial that you're currently going through? Maybe you're going through a difficult season. Maybe you're going through difficult stuff with school or some trial in your life right now. You're battling that others may not know about. How can you improve your perspective on that trial? Second, what's an enemy of perseverance right now for you that's very hard to overcome? Which of those three stand out to you the most? Buckling, bailing, or blaming? And we'll get back to it here. If we want to be mentally tough, we have to get clear vision and we have to get a big why. Now, let me share an analogy and I'll drive this home. Imagine that you're going on a long trip. It's a super long, hard trip, and you know it's going to cost money. It's going to take time. Your legs are going to be hurting. It's going to be a handful of days. You're going to spend money on hotels. Your car is going to need an oil change when you get there. Like, there's just different ups and downs and challenges and risks with this long, hard trip, and you're going to have to grind to get this thing done. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to make it very far before you just decide to turn back. Why would I fight and go through all this money and go through all this effort, risk and struggle and put my car through this thing? Like, I don't even know where I'm going. If we don't have a clear vision, I should say even beyond that, a compelling vision, a clear and compelling vision, we're going to struggle when it comes to adversity. On top of that, if I don't have a big why to go with it, I could know where I'm going. Like, let's say that I want to make this arduous journey across the country, 40 hours to California. I know where I'm going. I want to go to the beach in California. I want to go to La Jolla Beach. That's the game plan. But if I don't have a big why to get there that is worth the sacrifice that it's going to take, I'm not going to make it very far. So case in point, if my big why to get to California is just to go sit on the beach and get a tan because I just want to go hang in the ocean and see the West Coast, that'll get me a certain point. But if storms get in the way, if my car gets a flat tire, if it becomes really expensive, gas prices weren't what they expected, maybe it's more expensive with food as I go and it's taking a huge hit on my bank account. If these things start happening, eventually I'm just going to turn back. Like, that 40-hour trip just isn't worth it. So we have to have two things together. We have to have a clear, compelling vision, and we have to have a big why. But let's say that from a vision standpoint, it's La Jolla, but my big why isn't just to go get my tan on. But let's say my sister is in the hospital and she needs help, and I have to get there. And I take off from where I'm at. It doesn't matter what gets in the way. I will find a way to get there. I will exhaust my bank account. I will push through whatever flat tires I have to, whatever storm comes. I will find a way to get through the storm to get there to help my sister who needs help. So there's something that changes when our big why becomes really big and it becomes bigger than ourselves. And I want to dive into both of these a little bit because our mental toughness will radically increase when we have a clear, compelling vision and we have a super big why. So for some of us as athletes, what does that look like? If we don't know what we're fighting for, we're going to lack the resilience in the gym. We're going to lack the resilience in terms of saying no to bad food, to eat the right things. We're going to lack resilience to keep working and working and working after practice and shooting pucks or dribbling basketballs and just doing the extra. We're going to lack resilience because we don't know where we're going. We're just doing this. For me, as an athlete, I would do whatever it took in the gym, squats, sprints, bike. I would do whatever it took to train. The second my career ended, I have struggled. This is a confession. I've struggled in terms of what to do in the gym. I know hundreds of things to do. I can tell you a whole design of stuff. I have so many programs, but what I've lacked and struggled with is a clear, compelling vision that makes me want to do squats again. I don't want to do them. Like my legs are going to kill. And I don't want to go through the pain because I lack vision and I lack a big why. And I know this and I'm working through it. It's something that I'm navigating. So my mental toughness is directly connected to those dynamics. So for you as an athlete, we have to come up with a clear, compelling vision, and we have to come up with a big why that is bigger than you, and your mental toughness will start to go up. From a vision standpoint, it's simple. Where are you going? Where are you going? Are you fighting for the next level? Are you fighting to win a national championship? Are you fighting to leave a legacy, to impact lives for Christ? What's your vision? What's driving you? For me, when I played, my vision was I wanted to take a knee at center ice after an NHL game. I was in Tulsa. I was driving home from practice or a game one night, and I remember just having this picture in my head of me taking a knee in full hockey gear on top of a mountain. And for me, what that meant was I was going to take a knee at center ice after an NHL game. That was the dream. And why did I want to get there? Because I wanted to say thank you to Jesus for all that he did. He saved my life. And I wanted to honor God, and I wanted to climb that mountain just because the mountain was there. And I wanted to say thank you, Jesus, for saving my life. And this was just between me and you. I wanted to say thanks. And I was going to climb that thing with all my heart. And that was going to be the pillar of it all, was getting to take a knee at center ice after an NHL game. That was my vision. It's what drove me. That's what made me want to shoot extra pucks and get on the ice early and stay late and bag skate myself when I was exhausted. It's what drove me. So for you, do you have a clear, compelling vision, or do you lack one? Most people, they don't have one. Most athletes, they have a very general idea. Oh, I just want to keep going until I can't go any further. Oh, I just hope I can make it to the next level. That's better than nothing, but it's not best. We need to get something that drives us, that compels us. I have to have that. And I want it. And I'm not clinging to it like an idol, like this is the thing that defines my significance, but I'm going after it with open hands, with relentless effort and passion and joy out of worship to the Lord, because this is what he's put on my heart. So clear, compelling vision. Can you answer that question? Where are you going? That's a big one. And so we need to define that and take the courageous step to actually define it. That takes courage. It takes guts. That's a big first step. Second is we need to be able to get a big why. And that really answers the question, why do you compete? A way that we can start to discover a big why is we can start asking the question, what am I willing to do 1,000 squats tomorrow to accomplish? Is it to say thank you to the Lord? Is it to say thank you to your family? Is it to reach your teammates with the love of Jesus? Is it to bless the fans or bless the university that has brought you in or bless some people that have helped you along the way? What would you do 1,000 squats tomorrow for? To be able to bless or to say thank you? Like what drives you that much deep in your gut that you would be willing to do it? And I'll bet however you answer that question, is it's going to end up on this continuum at a higher level than just yourself. Most people, their why is themselves. They want to be respected. They want to make the next level to show that they can do it. They want to prove that they're better than somebody else, or they want to prove somebody wrong because when they were a kid, somebody bullied them or someone said something and they were just on a mission to prove it wrong. Some people are just motivated and it's just about themselves. It's not always necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes I want to get in shape because I just want to feel good. It's not always bad to have a motivation that is completely centered around me. But here's the thing, when that motivation is centered around me, there's a greater temptation toward pride and selfish ambition in self. It's also very limiting. It's very limiting because sooner or later you're going to run into something, some adversity that's bigger than you, and you're going to give up. So here's an example. I love to run. In the last year or so, my ankles and my knees have been hurting just bad. Probably because I've got bad shoes and probably because I've run so much that the wear and tear is just taking its toll on me. So a day wakes comes along, my knees bugging me. I don't really want to go for a run. But my little, 2-year-old daughter at that time loved to go on runs. She absolutely loved it. And she would look at me in the mornings and she'd be like, Dada. She'd go like this. She'd pat her hands and she'd go, run. She loved to do it. She loved going outside and being in the stroller. And so there's this day, my knees bugging me, my ankles bugging me. I'm like, I am not running today. And my little 2-year-old runs up to me and she goes a little pitter patter with her hands and goes, Dada. And she wants to run. What do you think I did? Billy, what do you think, man? What did I do that day?
Went for a run.
Dude, I crushed 5 miles like a champ. I absolutely dominated the 5 miles and my knee was bugging me. My ankle was bugging me. It was horrible. But why did I do it? Because it was no longer about me. Now it was about my daughter and it was about blessing her. And because my motivation went from me to family, my resilience and my mental toughness went up. If that then jumps to, it's not just going to impact my family, but this is actually going to change my community. I'm going to raise thousands of dollars to change the community we're in. Or this run means so much because it's going to change the dynamic of our culture and this community is going to be radically impacted. Or my team is going to be so moved by what we're doing that the legacy that's going to happen on this team is going to be so far beyond. I have to find a way. I'll push through whatever pain if it's going to change a community or change my team. The ultimate layer is if we get to the God layer, which is we're going to impact eternity. Me competing, me training, me getting in the gym, me going on runs, whatever the thing that we're doing is, I have to do this because it's going to change eternity. And it's the reason why when the Apostle Paul gets stoned almost to death in Acts, we read the story in Acts about how he gets stoned almost to death. He gets up and he goes right back into the city and he keeps sharing Jesus. And then he goes to the next city and he keeps sharing Jesus. And then he goes on another mission trip in the future. Nothing was stopping this guy from going and sharing the gospel. Why? Because it says in 2 Corinthians 5, the love of Christ compelled him to no longer live for himself, but for Christ who died and rose again on his behalf. He had to go because eternity was at stake. He was at the God layer and his mental toughness was radical, through the roof, because of this why that was so much bigger than him. To bring it all together, clear vision and a big why. If we can get these, our mental toughness will go up. So as Christians, when we have an eternal perspective, we have vision, we know where we're going, and the love of Christ is compelling us. We're driven by something so much bigger than ourselves. Our resilience goes up. It's why Christians for centuries have stood strong through some of the worst persecutions, because their hope is unfading and because the love of Christ compelled them. They would sacrifice their life. They were mentally tough. They would not break under pressure because of these things. So as athletes, if we can get a clear vision of what we're fighting for, a compelling, clear vision, and we can get a big why, our mental toughness will go up. Here's the breakout question. All right, we're going to go back into our breakout groups. How can a clear, compelling vision and a big why help you be mentally tough in a trial you are going through right now? All right, our fifth point is this. The last and final thing, okay, for this talk. You want to increase your mental toughness? The first one was perspective matters. We have to realize that God is good. He uses everything. What seem like setbacks are really God's setups for something greater. We embrace the perspective that God is in charge. He is good. He loves us and he's using it for good. Second, we avoid the three enemies. We do not buckle. We don't bail. We don't blame. The third is that we have to get a clear, compelling vision. Once we have it, we discover a big why that is bigger than ourselves. And now we're willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to get it done. The last and final thing is, guys and gals, we just have to be strong. We got to be strong. It says in 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. It's an active word. It's not something passive that you just sit back on. You have to be strong in the face of resistance. The only time we need to be strong or have strength is when we have a resistance to overcome. That resistance could be 10 pounds. It could be 100 pounds. It could be a car. Like, we have strength to overcome the resistance. We need to actively be strong. A couple ways we can be strong. We can start developing the habit of talking to ourselves, not listening to ourselves. There was a 100-mile marathoner. He would go through the mountains and he would run. He wanted to do something one time that no one had ever done, which was run a back-to-back 100-mile marathon. He was going to run one. He was going to take a 24-hour break, very short, and then he was going to run the next one. I couldn't imagine how difficult this would be, how hard, what it would be like on his feet, what it'd be like on his legs, how weak he would feel from nutrition if his legs were rubbing together and maybe they were burning, what it would feel like just grinding through, if he had blisters, if he had any sort of pain somewhere along the way. I'm sure he did. How do you get through that? Somebody asked him, how'd you do it? And his response was, I learned to talk to myself, not listen to myself. And what a lesson for us. If we want to go through adversity with mental toughness, we need to learn to talk to ourselves, not listen to yourself. If you're sitting on the bench in the middle of a game and every part of you wants to quit, every part of you wants to blame, every part of you wants to get discouraged and let discouragement win, or let an opinion of your teammate or the opinion of a coach try to define your significance, it's in those moments that we have to be strong. We have to talk to ourselves, not listen to ourselves. We have to be strong. This is a way that we can live it out. Next way is this. We need to increase our belief. To be strong, we have to increase our belief. We are tougher than we think and feel. Our mind is often a limiting factor to what our body can handle. Some of you probably have been told this by different people you've trained with and gone through stuff with, but the reality is true. Our mind is often the limiting factor. We are tougher than we often think and feel. Your legs can typically go a little bit longer and a little bit further. You are tougher than you think in regards to how much sleep you need. If you really need to get up after a couple hours to get something done, you can get it done. You can become a morning person. You can do things that are difficult and give up certain things in your life you feel like you need. We are tough. And often our mind is the limiting factor of what we think we can handle. So if we're going to be mentally tough, we need to stretch those limits and be willing to try to risk some of that. Our bodies are tough. Our minds are tough. We need to push those limits. And we also need to start talking to ourselves, not listening to ourselves. If we can do that and we can be strong, we can start living this out. Our mental toughness will start to elevate. All right. So here's our 5 things. Perspective matters. Avoid the 3 enemies to perseverance: buckling, bailing, and blaming. We got to get clear vision, compelling, clear vision. When we know where we're going, it's going to drive us to want to get there. We got to get a big why that is way bigger than ourselves. When we have it, we will sacrifice whatever it takes. And then we got to be strong. We got to talk to ourselves, not listen to ourselves. And we got to increase our belief, because there's a lot more in our tank than we realize. And our body will quit, our mind will quit and panic way before we truly, truly need to. And we need to push those limits if we want to be mentally tough. The final question that I have is this: can mental toughness be trained? And the answer is undoubtedly yes. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely, it can. None of us are stuck. None of us are stuck. You, where you're at today is 100% a place that you do not have to be at the rest of your life. You can grow this, but we got to stretch the limits. We got to start fighting to push the limits in terms of our strength and being strong and how we talk to ourselves and how we push those limits of our belief. We got to start fighting for this vision, fighting for that big why. We can train our mental toughness, just like our physical lactate threshold in our legs can increase, and we can hold those wall sits a little bit longer and longer and stay stronger on the bike and be able to do it with our physical body. Our mental toughness can increase too. Hopefully today is beneficial and encouraging. We'll just have you all share what's your biggest takeaway tonight, and we will be done.